Hey. Welcome to the channel, y'all. Listen, why am I so excited? Y'all made it to 70 subscribers today. What did I say? We're making it to that 100 subscribers by the end of 2025. I just know it. I feel it. We're about to make it to 100 subscribers December 31st, 2025. We in there, but yes, I'm super excited to be at 70 subscribers. I look forward to growing even greater. Okay, so today I'm going to be reacting to Graham Stephan's video. He's talking about mortgages again. Trump's administration suggesting new things to make housing more affordable. I know I've already talked about the 50-year mortgages. I've already given my not uncommon opinion about the 50-year mortgage. I don't think you hear people talking about the 50-year mortgage saying, oh, this is not a bad idea. I don't think it's a great idea, but I also don't see it as a horrible idea either. But that's neither here nor there. If you want to watch my perspective about this, watch the video from yesterday and then come back to this one. But today I'm going to be talking about Graham Stephan's video, WTF is happening to the housing market. So let's go ahead and watch it. Mind you, I will say this, I watched this already because I recorded this earlier and the sound was not giving what it was supposed to give, so I had to re-record it. But here we are. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel. It's your favorite realtor, Dr. Yeti, and I am back with yet another video. All right, so let's get to it, y'all. Let's get to it.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here. And just when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, buckle up. Starting soon, the mortgage giant Fannie Mae will be getting rid of their minimum credit score requirements to buy a home, at the same time that the Trump administration floats the idea of creating portable mortgages, meaning if you previously locked in a loan for 3%, theoretically you'd be able to take that loan with you to your next home, potentially unlocking hundreds of thousands of homes that otherwise never would have hit the market. That's why we need to talk about exactly what's happening, the impact this is about to have on the entire housing market, and the truth about whether or not we could actually see portable mortgages. Because if we can, it's going to create some big winners and some even bigger losers. Although before we start, hit the like to as many of your comments. More on that later. Alright, so first, let's talk about round. All duo, the 15th, and that would be no market going into effect officially by big thank you to the Gemini credit card for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. All right, so first let's talk about the one that will have the most immediate impact in the housing market, going into effect officially, by the way, on November 16th, and that would be no minimum credit scores. As a bit of a background, all of this begins
before he goes into it. Okay, what are your thoughts on no minimum credit score? Because the first thing that I heard when I first heard about it, I was like, this is insane. We are asking for the '08 crash all over again. And I was like, think about it. If you remove the minimum credit score, typically a credit score is meant to determine your financial, how responsible you are with your finances. That's what it's meant to represent. Now, there are some situations where your credit score may be lower, maybe because of high utilization is typically the reason why credit scores are low. But a lot of times, maybe it's a low history, right? You just opened the credit card a year ago or 2 years ago, right? There is not much history to determine your credit worthiness. Wow, credit worthiness sounds pretty bad. It sounds dystopian a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, but that's what they call it, credit worthiness. So if you remove credit scores as a baseline to determine whether or not somebody is eligible to purchase a home, that is dangerous. But let's keep watching because he talks about what the alternative would be.
With what's called Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And even though they sound like a rival rap duo, they're actually a federally backed mortgage company who buys and guarantees loans made by lenders and banks. See, anytime someone wants to buy a one-bedroom, one-bathroom home in San Francisco for $2 million.
Oh, one-bedroom, one-bathroom home in San Francisco for $2 million is actually insane. Look at it. It looks like it literally looks like a cardboard box. Like, look at it. It looks like a cardboard box. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, oh, wow. Maybe one day I'm going to look into that 67, 671. That is a duplex, it looks like. Yikes. Anyway, let's keep watching.
million dollars, they go through a bank or a
$2 million.
lender, allowing the buyer to be able to borrow most of the purchase. However, what most people don't realize is that when you get a mortgage from a bank, the bank isn't the one that actually holds on to it and then patiently waits for you to pay it back over 30 years. Instead, banks usually package all of their loans together into one giant basket, and then they sell that bundle off to investors as mortgage-backed securities while making a small profit in the process.
I talked to you guys about this before. If you watch any of my videos, I talk about the secondary mortgage market. The primary mortgage market is where the lenders originate the loans, and the secondary mortgage market is where they bundle up your loan with multiple other loans and sell it to other people that will buy it and service your loan.
This is why most banks have universally accepted mortgage requirements that you have to follow, like a minimum income, minimum amount of debt, or a certain credit score above 620, which is actually going away soon. Okay, we'll talk about that point in a moment, but because investors aren't always out there clamoring to buy these mortgage-backed securities, in 1938, the government created a backstop to guarantee to buy those mortgages if they meet a certain requirement. And by doing so, they created Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And this is where things get very interesting. Over the last few years, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been increasing the amounts that they're willing to finance, having raised their loan limits from $500,000 in 2020 to now as high as $1.5 million if you want to purchase 4 units. The thinking here is that home prices have gone up. This makes it easier to qualify for those larger loans. It expands the pool of buyers who are able to qualify for those loans. And now, this is the part that's beginning to worry people. No minimum credit score. Like I mentioned earlier, starting November 16th, Fannie Mae will no longer require a minimum credit score of 620. And I quote, "This is designed to expand access to mortgage credit, particularly among borrowers with so-called thin credit files or non-traditional credit histories." On top of that, they're also going to rely on their own comprehensive analysis of risk factors to determine eligibility. Now, in terms of what risk factors they look for, the home builder Pulte said that our underwriting standards are the same, and that they can now look at alternatives to your credit file, known as a Vantage score. This looks at your payment history outside of your normal credit profile, and it might include things like your rent payments, utility payments, phone payments, and anything else that might not show up. And the way they see it, this would allow a lot more borrowers to qualify who otherwise would have been left out. Like, just imagine that someone's been paying their rent on time, utilities.
By the way, I literally made a video about this, and I was looking to and fro for this video like months ago, talking about the situation. So this is not the first time that the government has proposed this. They've talked about this prior, that they were going to be taking away medical debt from your loans, or from your credit, not from your loans. You're still going to owe the medical debt. It's going to be taken off your credit. And also that they were going to be lowering or removing certain requirements for lending, which includes removing credit score minimum and replacing it with your on-time payment. So this is not really new, but I totally forgot about it. So it's interesting that they're bringing it back up again. It's as if they're really going to implement this.
On time, their bills on time for over a decade, but they just got their first credit card, and because it's so new, their credit score shows
so you guys can get his
someone's
point
been
across.
paying their rent first to qualify, who otherwise would have been left out. Like, just imagine that someone's been paying their rent on time, utilities on time, their bills on time for over a decade, but they just got their first credit card, and because it's so new, their credit score shows as 600. Well, prior to this new rule, they would have been left out, despite being an otherwise great borrower. But now, they could be included to get a mortgage as long as they meet every other criteria. Basically, this doesn't mean that lenders are removing the risk entirely, or giving loans to anybody with a pulse, but it does mean that they're no longer reliant on credit scores if everything else looks good. So, what's the risk? Well,
my daughter is being treated for leukemia. It hit me hard. It did. Being a girl dad.
My goodness.
Well, in terms of what I think, this isn't a surprise whatsoever, because lenders have been doing everything they can over the last few years to issue more loans and bigger loans, like increasing loan limits and allowing prior appraisals to be used in loan approvals. So it makes sense that they're getting rid of the minimum credit score requirement in favor of being able to use alternative data. From my perspective, this doesn't necessarily mean that banks are going to be giving money to people who otherwise can't pay for it, But it does tell me that enough people were getting disqualified that lenders wanted to change the rules to be able to push more people through. So is this starting to become a repeat of 2008? How will this affect the housing market? And more importantly, can we soon take our existing mortgage with us to the next home? Although before we go into that, one thing this really highlights is the importance of good financial habits, like making sure different
Get your money, Graham. Get your money.
without dollars. All you have to do every day is select for more earning slash $200 bone. Before we talk about whether or not this is a repeat of 2008, where buyers were given loans who couldn't afford them, and then the market subsequently collapsed, there is another topic gaining a lot of attention right now, and that would be mortgage porting. For those unaware, this was recently floated by the Trump administration as a way to take your existing mortgage rate with you from one home to another.
Okay, let's talk about it. Before he delves into it, think about it. With the interest rate of like 3%, 2% during C19, where mortgages were like easy to get, well, not, I wouldn't say easy to get, but interest rates were low. Yeah, a lot of people have this golden handcuff because they want to buy a bigger house, or they want to sell their home, or they want to do something to change their living situation, but they feel like they can't because the mortgage interest rate that they have is too good to let go of. And so now they have this golden handcuff that they're not able to move on into something, doing something different. So I think it's pretty cool if they are going to be able to, or if we as, you know, U.S. citizens, or not U.S. citizens, girl, what am I talking about? As consumers. Oh, listen, y'all, obviously I'm exhausted because what am I talking about? As consumers, to be able to purchase a home with our low interest rate and bring it on with us with a new home. So that's pretty cool.
So for example, if you bought a home in 2021 and you're locked in with a 2.875% interest rate for 30 years, and you don't want to move because that would require getting rid of that loan and getting a new mortgage at 7%, well, this would solve that entirely. Just apply your existing mortgage to your next home, and now you are no longer locked into your current house. Now, obviously, this one is quite divisive because on the one hand, you have a lot of sellers who are frozen in the market because they can't afford a higher mortgage rate. So this would completely solve that problem and cause a lot of inventory to flood onto the markets. But others say that this only benefits people who already have a low interest rate mortgage, and new buyers would have to obtain financing at higher interest rates today. So who's right? Would this actually happen? Well, in theory, here's how it might work. Let's say you have a 3% mortgage on a $500,000 house, and you want to sell it for a $700,000 house. In this case, with a portable mortgage, instead of going and applying for a new loan at 7%, you would reach out to your lender, requalify, appraise the property, and if everything checks out, your existing mortgage just ports over to the next house. Easy. Of course, if it's more expensive, the buyer would likely have to obtain secondary financing at a higher interest rate, and if it's less expensive, they would just pay down the difference. In terms of who benefits the most from this, the honest answer is existing homeowners, because they get to keep their existing mortgage rate and just move it over to a new house. However, the expectation is that this would unlock a lot of lower priced inventory that would have never otherwise hit the market at a lower price, allowing more first-time buyers to be able to qualify. So what are the chances of this actually happening?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm gonna just, before he keeps going, we're talking about an affordability crisis, not an accessibility crisis. There are homes on the market right now. Homes are entering the market every single day. I personally don't think that the issue is inventory. Adding more inventory into the market may lower the prices, but it's not going to give anyone the desire to enter into the housing market because home prices are slowly starting to go down. Credits, interest rates are slowly starting to go down. So people are entering into the market slowly. People are buying homes, but they're not buying homes because of inventory, right? They're buying homes because of affordability.
Well, to talk about that, we need to discuss lenders. Here's where things get very tricky. Normally in a market like this, when you sell a home, your loan gets paid off. And having 2 to 4% mortgages on a bank's or investor's books usually ends up leading to a huge loss for that company. Like, this is one of the reasons why Silicon Valley Bank ended up going belly up. It's the reason that banks are having some of their largest unrealized losses in history. And when they tie up capital for decades at rates that are well below today's rates, those loans are, for a lack of a better word, completely worthless. That's why.
Interesting. So those people who have loans from C19 times and their interest rates are really low, that means that their loans are considered worthless to the banks because their interest rates are so minuscule that the banks are not making any type of money from them. Interesting.
Lenders and investors generally assume that when they issue a loan, it'll be paid back on average every 12.8 years when that person picks up and moves to something else. In this case, however, if mortgages become portable, those loans will have to stay on the books for its entirety for decades. And as a result of that, lenders and investors will have to raise interest rates for everybody else to be able to compensate for that risk. Or if they don't do that, I guess the entire banking system will just become the backstop for low-yielding residential mortgages for decades. And we all know what happened the last time.
Yeah, that's interesting because the banks want to make money, but if they have so many loans that are essentially losing money, they're not going to. The desire to keep those loans is not going to be great, and they're going to be losing money. They're not going to have the desire to keep those loans. So somebody is going to have to pay for the costs. And 9 times out of 10, it's the consumers that pay the cost. It's 9 times out of 10 is the consumer that pay. By the way, y'all, it's kind of like I'm airheaded right now because I recorded this video already and I was so ready to edit it. I'm exhausted, but I need to make this video. I need to get this video out. So, but yeah, like the point is that the banks need to make their money. So somebody's have to eat the cost. So that there are 9 times out of 10 going to increase interest rates somewhere else. And it's going to be typically the new lenders or the new borrowers, not lenders.
The banking industry became too reliant on residential real estate. Anyway, if mortgage portability becomes a reality, we just have to ask ourselves the question, will this unlock more inventory in such a way that allows more people to enter the market and improve mobility? Or
I don't think the issue is inventory. I don't think it is. And maybe I need to look again and see what the inventory is looking like in the US over the course of the months and the years. But inventory, I don't think is the issue. However, if you increase inventory, you increase affordability. If you're in Atlanta, you will see that the inventory in Atlanta is significantly higher than it has been over the last 5 years. The inventory is high. There are properties right now sitting on the market. There are properties right now sitting on the market that are very beautiful. Price, but they're getting one to two showings in the last 60 days. Open houses, quiet. You have tumbleweeds. So I don't think it's inventory. I think it's more so financial instability. People are afraid right now. They don't want to get into the market.
Will this push up prices even further because we've created a surge demand from those homeowners who turn back around to buy something else with their record low interest rate? Well, thankfully, we don't have to speculate too much about this because something similar is already being done in Canada. That's right, in Canada, they allow you to port the mortgage from one property to another if you qualify. But there is one big difference. Canada doesn't have a fixed 30-year term. Instead, most of their loans are only fixed for 1 to 5 years, and then they reset once that term is up.
Horrible.
This makes mortgage portability extremely simple because banks don't have to worry about that loan being held to maturity, and even if they do hold on to it, it's only for a few years until eventually it goes away. So is there ever a chance of this happening in the United States? Look, the reality is this is going to be very difficult to implement because you can't just retroactively change mortgage laws across tens of millions of mortgages. It would be kind of like you investing in a company, expecting to get all your money back in 5 years, and then the government comes in and says,
actually, you're going to get paid back all your money in 30 years. Disagree with us? Well, that's too bad. All right, fine.
Like here in the United States, we have what's called a due on sale clause that mandates the loan stay with the property and then be paid off in full when that property transfers title. To make mortgages portable, you would need to completely change laws and processes for banks and lenders. You would need to completely rewrite how mortgages are structured. And there needs to be new pricing models for lenders and banks who have to hold on to these very long-lived, low-interest rate mortgages. That's why, as much as I would love for this to be the case, because I think the net benefit of porting mortgages is going to outweigh that of slightly higher demand, including more property tax revenue, unlocking inventory, and new buyers taking their place. Realistically, I just can't see this happening unless the government is there to backstop these loans with taxpayer funds. At which point, yeah, anything is possible with enough money. So ultimately, no, I don't think this one is going to happen. As much as I am in favor of it, it's just logistically, you can't do it without someone getting massively screwed. So are all of these housing market policies just going to repeat another 2008? Well, on the most basic level, the answer is probably not.
I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but long story short, I do feel like this is a very interesting time that we're in. I feel like a lot of people want to get into the housing market, but they are either priced out of the market or they are afraid to enter into the market because of job instability. Now, I will say this, I'm gonna say this again. I personally don't think that inventory is the issue. It's not because there's a lack of properties on the market. Homes are sitting on the market for a long period of time. They're lowering home prices every day because people aren't buying. So I would not say inventory is the issue. I think people not being interested is more so the issue. But let me know what you guys think. I'm super excited. This is, 70 subscribers deep. I'm doing something. Okay. But I'm so excited to get to 100 subscribers. I really am genuinely excited. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, do you think this is going to make houses more affordable for people? Do you think that lowering or removing the credit requirement, the credit score requirement, is beneficial? I think it is, but people have their opinions. I want to know what your opinions are in the comments. And also, do you think this mortgage portability thing is realistic? I don't think it's realistic, but hey, it may be. They may be able to tweak some things and move some things around. So I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are. And thank you so much for watching. I love you. And remember, God loves you even more. Bye.